You know, it's been a while since I've got to make an actual video on the Edmonton Oilers, so if you give me a minute, let me prepare myself for the intro. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today, yes, an actual video on the Edmonton Oilers. Today, we are recapping the Edmonton Oilers offseason because, believe me, there's been so many moves, I've kind of forgotten about a good amount of them, but I'm going to sit here today and kind of just summarize my thoughts and opinions on everything the Oilers did this offseason, look at what the team could be, or at least some aspects of the team could be going in to the next season, and just kind of give an overall final grade on what Ken Holland did. Before we get into talking about all that in the actual video, though, I do want to just quickly plug my podcast a little bit, because since the last time we've talked in one of these videos that was not a podcast, since that last time, the podcast has actually changed a lot. The podcast is now longer. Instead of it just being 30 minutes, it's about an hour and a half now. It has a lot more content involved in it, a lot more preparation involved in it as well. But I think the most important thing is, it's not just me now. Yes, I am an egotistical person, which is why it is still called the Warnercast, but I am now joined every single week by my new co-host, Colin. He's my best friend. He is my best friend. And he wanted to hop on the podcast one time, so now he's the new guy. So make sure to go and check that out. I think we're recording another episode tomorrow, and we should just be, I think we're doing Western Conference predictions tomorrow, so don't miss it. Go and check it out. But yeah, let's get into talking about the Edmonton Oilers offseason. Boy, Ken Holland was a busy guy, which, you know what, I'm actually going to, in a way, give him points for. He saw the team that went out there in that 4-game series against Winnipeg and said, no, not good enough, and he tried to make a lot of changes. The quality of changes can be argued, however, he made changes, I guess. Let's go to the first big deal that he made, and in my opinion, some people have thrown out other answers to this question. In my opinion, this is the worst move of the offseason by the Edmonton Oilers, so, hey, at least we're starting off with the worst one. It is, of course, the Duncan Keith trade. This trade nearly destroyed my vocal cords. Doctor said that if I had screamed that he is 37 years old one more time, my vocal cords would have been shot. They just would have blown right out. Yeah. Let's face it, all cards on the table here. I don't even think Oilers fans are trying to defend this one. This is a on-paper bad move, and this is a feasibly thinking bad move. We traded away a young 23-year-old defenseman and a third-round pick for a 37-year-old defenseman on the decline with no salary retention involved, when we were dealing with Stan Bowman, who ended up getting fleeced in the Seth Jones trade, and when there were no other competitors. It wasn't like if we did not ask for retained salary, they could have went to a team and got a better return. We were the only ones in on Duncan Keith at that point, and we still found a way to have the trade blow up in our face in a bad way. The only defense I had for the trade at the time was that, oh, if we trade away Caleb Jones and get something back for him, no matter what it is, maybe it can be good because we're probably going to lose him in the expansion draft. However, considering the fact we then went to protect Duncan Keith in the expansion draft, if we had not traded away Caleb Jones, we could have protected him, kept that young defenseman, and things would have been fine. So all in all, I really do not see any positives to this deal. If Duncan Keith can rewind the clock and be a good player with the Edmonton Oilers, not even rewind it, but just in a lesser role, play effectively, efficiently, and do well enough, I think it could end up being a decent deal for the Oilers. However, I think that there still is a lot more questions than there are answers with the Duncan Keith trade. Next up, I guess to talk about is the draft. And I'm not going to do a lot when talking about this draft. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it a lot because I've already made a full video on the draft itself. I think I gave the Oilers draft a B rating. because I thought it was pretty basic, but it was all right. Obviously, a lot of people are going to refer to the trade where we gave up the pick that became Jesper Wallstedt when we kind of knew it would be Jesper Wallstedt in exchange for the 22nd pick and then the 3rd round pick. And again, my thoughts on that really have not changed. Whenever guys fall down a draft board, there is normally a reason for it. Not even saying Wallstedt's not going to be good, but there is normally a reason when a guy who is supposed to go top 5 falls all the way down, right? I look at a guy like Joe Veleno. He was supposed to go top 10 in 2018. He fell to 30 with Detroit, and he still does look like he could be a good hockey player, but he's currently 21 years old, and he still has not hit the level that a normal top 10 pick would. Meanwhile, you look at the other guys that got picked in that top 5, and all of them are in the NHL. Dahlin, Svechnikov, Kachuk, Kotkaniemi, Barrett Hayton's had a cup of coffee there. You've had guys like Quinn Hughes, Adam Boqvist. When players fall in the draft from top 10 or top 5 down into the later part of the first round, there's a reason for it. And again, it might just be that teams are stupid or that teams didn't need a goalie, but I could count out several different teams who picked there that could have used a goalie like Jesper Wallstedt but did not go for him. There's a reason for it. Yeah, and I'm also happy with getting Xavier Bourgault back, and I think that he could be a good player. So, all in all, I gave the draft a B. That's how I'm going to have it stand. Then we get into free agency, and man, there are a lot of moves to talk about here, aren't there? There are a lot of, like, God damn it, he made so many moves that day that you can argue are good or bad. Let's start off with Tyson Barrie, right? And also, we're going to talk about Nugent after this, because I just realized he was a part of their offseason, but I forgot to talk about it. Tyson Barrie signs a 3-year extension worth $4.5 million per year with the Edmonton Oilers. Now, Tyson Barrie, for what he offers, is fine. He is what he is. You're not expecting him to be a defensive wizard. You have him there for one reason. It's because on the power play with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, he's very good. He's very good at being able to do the things. He's a very good power play quarterback on that top unit. And I think the main reason you bring him in here is just because maybe you don't trust Evan Bouchard enough to be there yet. I personally thought that he was trustworthy just because he is a very good right-hand defenseman with a really hard shot, good IQ, good playmaking abilities. But clearly, the Oilers thought that having Tyson Barrie in would help the team. I do question the right-hand side's fit over the next couple of years, considering the fact that Tyson Barrie is a really offensive-oriented defenseman. The same thing with Evan Bouchard. And Cody Cc is not the best defensive guy in the world. We'll get to that in a second. So I do wonder about how that's going to work in defensive situations. Maybe what they're thinking is that Evan Bouchard has a bit more of a two-way ability than they first thought. Maybe he has a bit more to offer them on the actual defensive side of the ice. And if that's the case, then good on them. I hope he can. That would be a great thing to see. Him playing like penalty kill minutes and him being able to play in some shutdown situations would be good. Obviously, Tippett said that he was a big part of what their year is going to be, so obviously the Oilers organization is very high on what he could do going forward, and he already looks like he is a great defenseman. So maybe you're confident enough in Evan Bouchard's two-way ability to focus on a guy like Tyson Barrie, who is a very offensive guy, over a guy that could offer you a bit more of a two-way game than Ethan Bear. If used correctly, and as long as the Oilers' defense can hold up defensively, which I do not know if they can, and I think I'll wrap that up at the end of the video. But yeah, it's a fine signing. I am just very questionable on the fit of Tyson Barrie as an Edmonton Oiler next year. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins signed an 8-year extension with the Oilers, and again, I feel like I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because my feelings on it are pretty clear. I'm very happy about this deal. Yes, 7 and 8. Those years are going to be the biggest question marks in a while, right? This really does have the potential to be maybe not our advocator deal, but like one of those bad deals that Ken Holland signed. It does have the ability to turn into that, where that back end of that deal has to be cleaned up by somebody else in a bad way. However, I think that for the first half of that contract, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is going to play more than well enough to make up for that contract. And I don't even think he's going to be the type of guy that will fall off completely, even when he is in the back half of that contract. If the offense is gone, I really do think his two-way ability can still be there. So even though it'll be expensive, he can still be a somewhat reliable bottom six forward, maybe third line, middle six forward even. Maybe if he's not that elite level two-way player, he could still be a good enough two-way player to be in the middle six. So I still have a bit of faith in that deal. I think it's a good deal, and I think that it could pay off pretty well for the Oilers. Up next, Zach Hyman. Let's get into some actual big boy contract signings here. Zach Hyman, 7 years, $5.5 million. I am excited that Zach Hyman is going to be a member of the Edmonton Oilers. All I've heard from fans in Toronto are stellar, 5-star reviews on him. He is something I think that the Oilers need. The Oilers have a lot of guys who can go into the corners and who can grind their way through some puck battles, except here's the problem. None of those guys that do that can then take the puck and do anything with them. Zach Hyman is not only a really gritty player that can get into those tougher spots on the ice, not only is he good defensively as well, but he is also a very, very good offensive player, especially goal scorer. If his past 3 seasons, obviously this year was shortened, the year before was shortened, but if they were all 82-game seasons, Zach Hyman would be on pace for nearly 30 goals, if not surpass 30 goals, in all 3 of those seasons. So this past year is not something you can just have hammered down to being a UFA year for Hyman. He's just that good of a player. Arguably one of the more under-the-radar players in the league, sneaky good. Now, the contract is long. It is a 7-year deal worth $5.5 million. And history does show that when you splurge on free agent talents, you can pay at points if you go too long of term. For me, honestly, if you really want to make some comparisons here, this could honestly turn out to be our Justin Advocator contract in a few years' time. I think Hyman will differ from Advocator in the fact that I think that Hyman will actually play well with the Edmonton Oilers for the next few years. I think the first half of that contract works out well, but I could really see that contract turning into a Justin Advocator-like deal in the back half. So we're going to have to see how that deal works out for the Oilers. I think, like I said, I like Zach Hyman. I like what he has to bring. I think he's going to do really well in the first few years with the Oilers. But then we'll see about the back half of that deal. I think that it could... maybe it is a situation where if the cap goes up by that point, you're able to swallow that deal without taking on too many repercussions for it. However, again, wait and see what ends up happening with that. Then we get to the Cody Cc contract, and the thing is, I'm so morally conflicted right now. Seth Jones, I was just thinking of Seth Jones because I was going to make a point relating them. But Cody Cc signs a 4-year deal with the Edmonton Oilers worth $3.25 million per year. I thought it was a 3x3. Was that what I thought? I thought it was a 3x4, I think. Yeah. This is definitely a contract that has the potential to blow up in the face of the Edmonton Oilers, depending on what Cody Cc does. It really could. Now, what I will say is this. There's a reason Cody Cc made that much money, and that's because that is the going rate for a defenseman, especially right shot guys of that caliber. There is a reason they are getting paid that much money for a reason. It's just because they are a rarity and, hard to find them. So, of course, they're getting paid that much money. Cody Cc this past season in Pittsburgh did play fairly well. However, it should be noted that in these minutes, and Penguins fans would tell you this, he was a sheltered player. He was being protected a little bit by the other guys around him, and his mistakes were being covered up for by other better defensemen. So we will see how that story ends up playing out with Cody Cc. Can he hold on to the form that he's kind of set for himself after this year in Pittsburgh when he's the guy? Because, and let me make this very clear, I know a lot of people are going to laugh when they say this, and I know it is kind of funny. Cody Cc is the Edmonton Oilers' shutdown defender. He, in the crunch time, is going to be the guy out there getting defensive shifts, especially on the right-hand side. You're not throwing Barry out there when you need to shut down the game, and you're not throwing Bouchard out there when you need to shut down the game. Cody Cc is going to be this team's shutdown defender, and I kind of just cried on the inside. Again, no offense to Cc, but him as the best defensive guy we have, I was comfortable with Adam Larson. Cody Cc is a lot different. Again, I'm going to be giving Cody Cc a shot, and that's the thing, right? Even with these bad moves, like I said, Duncan Keith, that was the worst move of the offseason. I'm still giving him a chance. I'm going to give Cody Cc a chance. I want to see what Cody Cc can do. I'm just not overly confident in what he can bring to the table. I'm a little bit nervous about how he's going to play for the Edmonton Oilers. So we will have to see how that all plays out. But let's see how Cody Cc does. Let's give him a shot. Right now, I would say that this is probably the second worst move of the offseason for them. Actually, no, third worst move of the offseason. Sorry. I'd say it's that, but honestly, it's whatever. We'll see how it all pans out. I think that we have to give it a bit of time to set in and see what we're getting in Cody Cc. Also, I know I'm talking a lot about all the worst moves, second, third worst moves. The best three moves of the offseason, just to be fair to Ken Holland, because I do like some of the moves he's made. I'd say the Nugent contract's his best move of the offseason. The second best move is the Hyman contract. So yeah, we've talked about Cc. Let's now talk about some of the more lower down players that Ken Holland brought in and signed to contracts. We had Derek Ryan getting signed to the Oilers. That's a one-year deal at approximately $1.25 million, if I'm not mistaken. This is the part where I load up Google and I go on a Cap Friendly and I look at Oilers transactions and I figure out all the moves I know I'm forgetting that the Oilers have made. Derek Ryan, I think, can prove to be a decent bottom six center. He's right-handed. He can kill penalties. He can offer you a bit of everything that you kind of need out of the guy. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's actually a pretty decent little, a good idea, right? I think it's a decent little idea that they had there in bringing him in. I think that he was also rumored to be coming to the Oilers at the trade deadline, so you kind of just get him the summer after, so that's not bad. That's not a bad move at all. Actually, it's a 2-year deal. For a 34-year-old, a bit concerning, but I think that it's going to be okay. This guy reminds me a lot of what Kyle Brodziak was brought in for a couple years ago before he had to retire. So, yeah, not bad at all. Looking at some of the other moves, just kind of to wrap up, Brendan Perlini signs a 1-year, 2-way deal, $750. That's not bad. Brendan Perlini is a guy who scored 20 goals one year early in his career. He's fallen off since, but if he can recapture a bit of the magic that he used to have, who knows? Maybe this is a guy that you're willing to throw into the top six in a pinch, play with McDavid, see what he can do. I think that this is almost like the Dominic Cahoon type player that we're getting in Brendan Perlini, where it's like a bit of an under-the-radar forward that could be good, except it's a bit different because he spent his last year over in Europe. Slater Cuckoo's back on a 2-year contract at $925. It's a one-way deal. Again, it's really a whatever contract for me. It's a depth defenseman that you can put in your third pair if you want. Maybe you have him as a depth guy most of the time, though. It's not a bad contract at all. Stuart Skinner re-signed. Benson. Warren Fogle, who was traded for, we'll get to that in a minute, signed to a deal as well. Mike Smith's contract, Devin Shore's contract. Well, I think I've already talked about both of those in detail. Let's And let's talk about the second last move I want to talk about when it comes to this offseason wrap-up, that being the trade that sent Ethan Bear to the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for Warren Foegele. I like the deal a lot more than others are. Let me be clear. I do think it would have been a lot easier to just keep Ethan Bear here, not sign Tyson Barrie, and then find a guy like Warren Foegele in free agency. However, I do not mind this deal at all. Ethan Bear, I'm going to miss him. He was pretty good. I really liked what he brought to the table. A young guy, only getting better. I think Carolina just got a stud here. Meanwhile, the Oilers are getting a young forward in Warren Foegele, who can provide a bottom six presence, who could maybe slide up into that top six. I personally think he's a middle six level forward. You're looking to see what he can do in the bottom six, maybe driving his own line. I think that could be a really good thing to see. Yeah, I like what Warren Foegele brings to the table, and it does suck to lose Ethan Bear, but I think Warren Foegele does make up for it. And then we get to the final contract at hand. The final thing to talk about. It's the Darnell Nurse extension. I did not give formal thoughts on it, but it is a 8-year deal at $9.25 million. Okay, so I made fun of Chicago for Seth Jones, right? I'm not allowed to do that anymore because we signed Darnell Nurse to this. On the same week where Adam Pelech got 5.7 for 8 years from the Islanders, it's unfortunate to me that Darnell Nurse did get 9.25. He had a good year, do not get me wrong. Do not get me wrong, he did. It's just... wait. You don't have to sign guys now. You can wait. I feel like if you had waited until New Year's and Nurse was still doing this, I would have been fine with it. I would have been fine if Nurse was still doing this and then you gave him this monstrous 8-year contract, like, at Christmas time or something, right? But the fact that after a statistically unmatchable year from Darnell Nurse, where he had an incredible year that saw him put up numbers I don't think would be sustainable, the fact you're confident enough that that's what he is now going to be permanently, to give him an 8-year deal at this much money, it's concerning. I'm a little bit worried, but again, I have to have faith. I'd say this is right now the second worst move of the offseason, but again, I'm still going to have faith. I'm still just going to have faith in this move. Please work out. Just please, for the love of God, work out. I hate 8-year deals unless they are for guarantees. Please work out. Please do. That is the Edmonton Oilers offseason. I probably am missing some minor move, but I really can't think of it right now, the thing that I am missing out on, so I'm just going to pretend like that's all there is to talk about. My opinions on the offseason are pretty simple. Wait and see. Do the moves look good on paper? No. Not all of them do. Could they still work out? Yes, they absolutely could. I'm going to give it some time. If you ask me for a grade, I think I'm going to give Ken Holland a C-. And I know that a lot of people are going to give him an F. A lot of people are going to give Ken Holland an F, right? He made a lot of good moves, but his bad moves were so big. That's the problem with what Ken Holland did. His bad moves were really bad, and that kind of dampened everyone's view on his offseason. But he did make some good moves that, in the process, did go under the radar. He made a couple moves that were, he got the Hyman deal done, and that is a very good player you're getting. He got the Nugent contract. That is a very good extension for that player in particular. I don't understand why people are getting so mad about the Mike Smith deal. I know it's a 2-year deal, but if he can be a serviceable backup, that's going to be fine, as long as you get a starter. There are a couple different moves he made that I personally like. And while I do not like the moves that were really bad, that were clearly bad, Duncan Keith, Darnell Nurse, I'm still not going to give up hope on them. I'm going to give him a C- for that. My biggest problem, in a way, with his offseason, though, isn't what he did. It's what he did not do. Like, honestly, I think about what he did, what he went out there and got. He improved the bottom six, which is something I've wanted him to do. He changed up the defense, which, even though I wouldn't have done it that way, let's wait and see. Maybe it does pan out. The big thing he did for me, the big thing he didn't do for me, the big problem I have, goaltending. So, you're saying that goaltending was the only part about our team that didn't need to change? That's my big problem with it. My biggest need going into the offseason was moving Mikko Koskinen and getting a different goalie. And you didn't do that. You didn't. So now you need to find a way to do it. Now, I do not think that there is no chance of a deal happening. I do think that there's a very good opportunity that Ken Holland is not done yet. There's one name out there that is really fascinating to me right now, and that's Anton Khudobin. A lot of talk that he might be on the block, and it does make sense considering the fact that Dallas has a logjam in that. I could see a situation where maybe the Oilers do go out there and get Anton Khudobin and then line up their goaltending tandem to be all expired in 2 years. Also, if they went and got Khudobin and then traded away Koskinen and a draft pick to clear off that contract, say to a team that needs a goalie like Arizona, whose current goaltending tandem is Carter Hutton and Josef Kornar, I will never get over that. If you can maybe go and ship Mikko Koskinen off to Arizona in a draft pick and then bring in Anton Khudobin, you cut off about $1 million in salary, and you improve vastly in the goaltending department. I think that there is a very good chance for one or two more moves to be made that can help this team. I do not think it's tough to say. A lot of people would say he's done. I do not know if he's done. I don't know if he's done. I really don't. I really don't. I think that he could still make one or two more moves. But for now, he is done. I do not like what the goaltending looks like, but again, let's see what this team does. Maybe a few guys, maybe Mikko Koskinen was just having an off year. I don't think so, but maybe, who knows. What did you guys think of the Edmonton Oilers offseason? Thank you all for watching this video. Please make sure to watch the podcast tomorrow. It should drop tomorrow, and if it doesn't, Colin's a busy man, is I think the best way to describe it. He's a busy boy, and so, maybe we can't record the podcast tomorrow. It happened last week. We were going to record it on Thursday. We had to record it on the Friday. It's whatever. Be patient with us. There will be a podcast this week or early next week, one of the two. Thank you all for watching this video. I will see you all next time. Goodbye for now. Also, by the way, peep the new setup. I've moved things around in my room again, as I like to do every 6 months. Okay, goodbye.